Welcome to Grail Quest Comics. I'm D. This is my channel. I have another channel called Grail Quest Books. As you can see behind me, I have multiple bookshelves, so that channel is all about books. But this one is comics. Why do I call it Grail Quest? Short answer, I'm a big Indiana Jones fan. Last Crusade's my favorite and still my favorite. I'm also academically and a little professionally, and I like to say an amateur medievalist. I dive into medieval history and literature, and a lot of the literature aspect revolves around Arthurian mythology and the Grail Quest. But I ain't my dog Indiana, so which side influenced that more, you decide. But this is all about comics and my intro and, you know, what influenced me. And sometimes, especially with me, because I didn't grow up near a comic shop, so finding comics and books, but mostly comics, was like a Grail Quest. If I found one, it would be at a random store somewhere, and eventually I did get to the ones that really, just like the Grail, influenced me a lot in a lot of my interests when it comes to fiction. So, first comic, Summer Superman, which is, if you looked at my shorts, that is what I'm in right now. I don't expect to lose interest for a bit. I watched it when it came out. I've watched it just yesterday with my nephews. They loved it. I love it. I'm getting them Superman comics. Like, the whole reason I really started getting back into comics was because my nephews, and I'm trying to encourage them to read. So I'm in Superman. And just like Summer of Superman, at 8 years old, my first comic gifted to me was Adventures of Superman 581. There's no cover. It was my first comic ever. I was 8. I was just happy to tear into it and have an adventure with Superman. And it's titled Adversaries, and all I really knew and still kind of know is that Superman has to deal with this guy named the Adversary. He looks like he's got like black leather and spikes, and he's got a cigar, kind of like a stereotypical, bad biker dude, I guess. I don't really know. He captures Lex Luthor to get at Superman for like publicity or something, and the comic ends with Superman fighting him on a cliffhanger, like most do. This is my first comic. There's no cover left. Um, yeah, Derek, as a kid, I loved it, and I was happy a year later at Christmas time when I was in a store, not taking part in whatever my parents were doing, but just looking around, that I came across a magazine stack with a Justice League comic. This is Joker, Last Laugh. This is a JLA. It takes place after Grant Morrison's run. It hooked me because I picked it up and I seen the picture and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. And then I seen this and knew that I had to have it. My parents were gracious enough to let me take this home, and it's in a little bit better condition than the other one. I learned from my mistake. The roster is similar to the cartoon back in the day. The only real difference is there's Hawk Girl's not in this, and the Lantern is Kyle Rayner instead of John Stewart. But this was my first Justice League comic, and I tried to keep better care of it. Now, moving into Marvel, kind of cheating because I got these two at a Walmart with toys. Now, which? X-Men, Ghost Rider. As you can see, these are in a lot better condition, and it's not because I learned from my mistake. Sadly, I do remember getting these, and in 2002, I was 10, and I looked through them. I know that Wolverine deals with Hellfire Club, and Ghost Rider's fighting like a vampire or demon or something. I mostly flipped through them really quick because there's a lot of words in these, because I think they're older reprints, and 10-year-old Derek was not about to do all that reading, especially with toys partnered with it. So I flipped through it, thanked it for the inspiration, and went to play with my Wolverine and Ghost Rider on his bike. But these are my first Marvel comics, and I am glad that they're in better condition than the others, because it's nice to be able to have this as an adult. So those are the big two, but there is another franchise that's important to me, and as you can see, it's Star Wars. So these next ones that end this video are Star Wars. The first is a 2004 free comic book day, Star Wars The Clone Wars. You're like, that doesn't look like The Clone Wars. This isn't Dave Filoni's Clone Wars. This is The Clone Wars before The Clone Wars. It's, as someone who watched Attack of the Clones in the theater as his first Star Wars movie, this era was something else. I watched the episode 4 when I was like 4 years old. Like I've been a Star Wars fan as long as I can remember. But the prequels meant that I knew what was happening at the end. But this cartoon for me uh, made me worried. So this was gifted to me, and I did try to keep good care of it. But it's not from lack of trying. It's because I read it so much. I had to put tape on it because I read it so much. It's starting to fall apart. It's Luminar and Barriss. They're trying to get a village of people to evacuate, but they're fighting the evacuation because they want to take all their stuff. And Grievous is coming. He's bringing his droid army. Barriss has to do like some line, playing dead to hold him off, to ambush him or something. And uh, that's the only thing I really wish that Dave Filoni would have incorporated more is how menacing Grievous was in this series. And I'm not going to ramble on about it, but I'm just going to say that if you haven't watched this, if you're a Star Wars fan, if you're a Clone Wars fan, and you love Dave Filoni, which I love his work, I love Ahsoka, but you haven't watched this, you are missing out because this micro series only takes about an hour to 2 hours to watch in its entirety. It's on, I think, Disney Plus. It was the Clone Wars before the Clone Wars. This is what I had as a reference going into Revenge of the Sith, and I was terrified of what Grievous was going to do to these characters because when he shows up, he just decimates an army, wipes the floor with a handful of Jedi. Does it again when he goes and sacks Coruscant to get the Chancellor. So this was big. I had never read a Star Wars comic before, so I was ecstatic. The next Star Wars comic is a totally different era, but one that is still just as big, and that is Knights of the Old Republic. Played the games. I loved the games. If you played the games, you know it's Revan, Malak, the Jedi fighting the Sith. There's the Star Forge. Then there's the Sith Lord sequel where it's got Darth Kreia, depending, what side she's playing at the moment. And these are good games, and I still love them. The comic, you think, oh yeah, no. We get Zane Carrick set during the Mandalorian Wars, and he is framed for the murder of other Padawans that are his friends by their masters. So he's on the run. I didn't get issue 1. I didn't live near a comic shop, but I got the issue that I could get when I got it. I have a few more, but I don't have the entire run of John Jackson Miller's work with this. But I did make sure I got the reprint of the Omni recently. I wish I'd gotten it the first go around, but you know what? All's well that ends well. And I'm telling you, if you like Star Wars, if you've played the games, you haven't touched these comics, if you haven't read this story, it is so good and it's so worth the money because Zane is not like your regular Jedi. If you asked him what he's best at when it comes to using the Force, like Emperor's is lightning, Vader's is Force choking, stuff like that. Obi-Wan's is a mind trick. Zane Carrick would tell you his would be bad luck, and it really leads him on an interesting journey. He makes alliances with people you wouldn't think, Mandalorians, people from the underworld, and it's a great story. So I would very much encourage you to check out that Omni for this if you haven't, because it's one of the best Star Wars stories out there. The next one, also the same time period, around 2006, and I do have issue 1, is Legacy. And as you can tell, this is really edgy. You've got Crate, Talon, and I think Nile is his name. It's set 100 years after either the Battle of Yavin or Return of the Jedi. And it's about these characters. You got Cole Skywalker, Cade Skywalker, the Sith are attacking. It's Sith show back up. They sack everything. They create the Empire 2.0, and the dark side is reigning. And Cade is not your typical Skywalker. It really deals with him basically being raised by pirates. He does death sticks. It's him fighting his destiny as a Skywalker, and it doesn't go the way you think. And as much as some people may not like how oh, this is perfect, he's wearing Darth Vader's pants. It's a good story. It's for the expanded universe, picking up on the aftermath of the stories at the time. It's a fun journey as a kid that was growing up, around Revenge of the Sith. It was perfectly timed for me. The issues that I do have, I just devour them, and as you can see, I have learned from my mistakes. I've kept better care of them. So these are the first comics that I ever got from 2000 to 2006 at really good points in my life, and they influence what I'm doing now. So DC, I'm currently doing a lot of Justice League, but I was a Green Lantern guy growing up, so I have Jeff Johns Omnis. I just got the Red Lanterns Omnibus. I'm not sure about that. Love Green Lantern, Superman, Getting into Flash, trying to get better into Batman. Marvel, I have Spider-Man Omnis, but there's so much that I'm on a learning journey with that. I'm getting what Daredevil I can. I love Daredevil, love the Netflix series. Non-superheroes, non-Marvel DC. I got Invincible. I have the Dune graphic novels. I get the Star Wars stuff. So trade paperbacks of the new stuff, Omnis of the old stuff. I've not stopped doing Star Wars since 4. So if you're into comics and if any of this stuff is what you're into, or if you have suggestions, I'm open to suggestions. I'm picking up what I'm getting suggested that piques my interest. So if you want to hang out with me while I talk about comics, while I'm looking into comics, I'd be happy to have you at Grail Quest Comics.